Should I push got it on this? Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, an X-Acto knife, your parchment paper. I've already got a snowflake on mine. Actually, 2 sheets is what we're gonna need today. And a pencil. Because if you try to use ink or Sharpie on this fiberboard, it's just gonna suck the ink out of it. So it's best to use a pencil when we're tracing our snowflakes and stencils. And we need a bottle of hairspray. This is gonna be our glue after we sprinkle the frit powder onto our fiberboard stencils. And Elmer's glue, I'm gonna have you do a little bonus gluing just for travel purposes. I would not use the Elmer's if we were just at the studio a few feet from the kiln. And bits and pieces of your colored glass, because like we did with the clay, we can insert little pieces into our designs. And if you brought a cookie cutter, you can pull that out because you can use cookie cutters as well as stencils to get your patterns. And you should also have a bin or baggie of Cricut or Cricut cut stencils of snowflakes, stars, leaves, trees. So you may also choose from those. And keep your glass modeling clay close because we can combine it for to get more detail, or I'll show you in a minute. And you need your Dixie cup, and you need your spoon, and you need to do your cutting, your X-Acto cutting on your plastic work mat. All right, so.
Yes. Yeah, this one's got.
So what I would like for everybody to do right now is to pull out your base. Let's do the large base that we're gonna cut a stencil out and do our demo to learn this technique. And as soon as Wendy gets back, I'll switch it down to the to the workspace camera. All right, so we're gonna do the same as we did last time. We're gonna draw an outline of your base onto a piece of parchment paper. And working with these bases, pre-cut bases, we're learning spatial relations and how to form our composition in a limited space. And make sure you choose a stencil that's gonna fit. The snowflake I chose is barely gonna fit. And I actually altered it a little bit just to simplify it. But I'm gonna go with the snowflake to show you. And you can choose whether it's a flower. Also, if you're thinking forward towards your lantern, you can go the flower, wings on a dragonfly, or if you're gonna do a winter theme, one of the demos I have here is a candle. Any questions so far? Has everybody gathered their materials and they're ready for a demonstration? Thumbs up.
You don't have the stencils yet.
Okay, our place is still picking out stencils. But I'm just going to explain to everybody what I did. Now, if I did not want to take away from my my location stencils, so I made my own out of the parchment paper.
More workspace, like bigger
Okay.
area, maybe?
All right.
That was a question. There. You can see everything you got going. Was that better? Okay.
All right. There we go.
Are we tracing these on here?
Yes. And just to clarify, I made my own stencil out of parchment paper because I didn't want to take from the class. But yes, I made my stencil. And then I'm going to place it on the smooth side of the fiberboard. And I know I'm way ahead of y'all, but I'm just going to do this so you know what's coming. And you might need, because it's all white, you might need to trace the edge of your stencil. You can see a little bit here that it's showing up a little bit. But I'm just going to go around it with a pencil. And anybody who's already chosen their stencil, and make sure it's going to fit on your demo 3" by 4" base, can start doing this too. And start close to the edge. So we can save this and be economical with how we're using it. So don't just start in the middle, start close to the edge, which I could have started even closer. And just start tracing around your stencil or your cookie cutter. And your cookie cutter, I don't know how big it is, but you could either trace on, here's a little mini cookie cutter. You can either trace your pencil on the inside. Whoops, here we go. On the inside or on the outside.
These are for a piece of glass.
These are for the piece of glass. We're not working on our elements for our lanterns yet. Okay, I finished tracing. I'm gonna put my stencil aside. I'm going to put my mask on. Because as soon as you pick this up or start cutting it, the particles are gonna get into the air. How do I sound through my mask? Is it just, can you hear me? Everybody thumbs up? Or should I take it off when I speak?
No, they got you.
Okay.
We're still doing some tracing.
All right, everybody give me a thumbs up when you're finished tracing and you're ready to pick up your X-Acto knife and start cutting. So this is fireproof fiberboard. Everybody can keep working. It will soften up, but it will not burn up when we put it in the kiln. And this is one I made yesterday, and it still is attached to the fiberboard. So I I must peel it off. And this is thicker. I used a thicker one I had at home so you can see it better on the camera. So when you get it back next week, you're going to have to peel this off. And a paintbrush. All the while being very gentle because it's very thin and very delicate. So it doesn't turn to ash like the fire paper does. I can see it kicking up a little dust there. So that's what you're going to be doing next week, just to look ahead and understand more of what we're doing today. And then when you take it all off, you will have something like this. Or these are actually the flames for the candle I made and I took it off. That's the back. And it's going to do something like that.
People are ready.
All right. So be sure you have your mask on now. If I hear any coughing out there, I'll know somebody did not put their mask on. So if anybody forgets or doesn't have their mask on right and they start, you get a tickle in your throat, it takes a few hours for that to go away. It's not going to give you a disease or anything. It's just a minor irritant. When I use an X-Acto on this fiber paper, it's so much easier than using scissors. I keep it at an angle. That's probably not quite a 45-degree angle, and pull it towards me. If it's too tall, it's not going to want to go anywhere. It glides much easier if you hold it like a pencil and pull it towards you or towards the side, whatever. Like these, I'm changing the angle of my X-Acto instead of changing the angle of the fiberboard. And here it started dragging, pulling a little bit. So I just changed my angle to be an even smaller angle, tilting it closer down towards the surface, and it lets go of it a little bit. So another thing is I'm not going to do a design that has a lot of little tiny arms to it, super skinny, because it'll be difficult to get the frit granules to stay on without falling off. We're going to use some Elmer's glue to help that. But yeah, we cannot get as detailed with this fiberboard as we can with the modeling glass clay. And remember that KISS word, keep it super simple. The X-Acto is one of my favorite tools. I go for it almost before I go for anything. Scissors, use it like tweezers sometimes.
We have a question from Thane.
Yes.
Because we can't get as much detail, does that mean we shouldn't cut small pieces out of the fireboard? Repeat that question.
Okay, the question is, if we cannot get small enough detail, should we not cut small pieces out of the fiberboard? Was that the question?
Correct.
Okay. Last week, I think I showed this example. And let me move this. The answer is, if you're able to cut it and you're able to keep that your granules of your frit on it, then it's okay. But if you're having troubles, you need to switch to a less detailed, like this. This is one I made with the sugar crystal, glass crystal granules, and it has just deteriorated. But the ones that I made that were larger and less thin lines have held up really well. So I don't have a solid answer for that. You can try it. But if it doesn't work, you're going to have to go to bigger detail. Oh, I still have some cuts I haven't done. So if you've already started, I know I should have made that statement before we started, but if you've already started on something and you want to give it a go, if you have really thin lines, then we will use the Elmer's glue to help you see if you can't make that happen.
I'm just trying to keep it on long enough to fire it. Is that the thing? Or
Yes, the question is, are we just trying to keep the granules, the frit on the fiberboard until it gets fired? Yes, that's exactly right. And
Okay.
we are taking a couple extra steps that I don't normally take because these are being transported for many, many miles and will be jostled a lot. So we're just going to spend more time on the gluing process and just simplify our designs just for that. Just for that purpose. And you just try to punch it out like I'm still finding lines that I missed. And I didn't mean to scare you. It's okay if it bends a little bit. You just don't want it to break in half. Okay, I'm going to put my larger piece aside, and that one is ready to go. And I need to make it a little, I went crazy and made it a little bigger. I don't think anybody needs scissors.
I brought some scissors, too. Good question, Judy.
Question, yes?
Is it gonna shrink a bit?
It will not shrink. The question was, is it gonna shrink? It will not shrink as much as the clay. But it will shrink just a tiny bit. I don't even think it's gonna be noticeable. Okay, that's better. I just don't want it to hang off very far because it's delicate. Like this flower, you can see it hangs off, oh, 1/8 of an inch or something. I'm okay with that. I just didn't want it to be too far off. Okay, so after I finish cutting, I'm gonna place it on top of a piece of parchment paper. And I'm gonna get the Elmer's glue. So if you've gotten to this point, you've got your fiberboard stencil and you're laying it on your paper, then you can put like 1 inch. I was using this so you can see it better how much I had, but like 1 inch in your Dixie cup of your frit. And have your spoon ready too. You'll have to, we have the 1 pound jars. You will have to get a couple scoops with your spoon and put it in your Dixie cup and pass it to your neighbor. I'm going to go ahead and move ahead because it's going to take a while to do this. But what I'm going to do with this Elmer's is not put it all over everything. I'm just going to put it on the edge.
Which, that's gonna be what side?
This is the smooth side.
Smooth side.
And this is only because we're going to be transporting them and need more support during transport. And I'm using the Elmer's because it's stronger than hairspray. And we don't normally think of hairspray as glue because it's a strong enough glue to hold our hair, but it's not generally used in crafts. But we don't want something that's super strong. We just need something to make everything stick together. But the Elmer's glue is much stronger and it's going to give us a strong edge on the outside for that extra support. If I were just using the hairspray, I would just spray the stencil with a good shot of hairspray before I start sprinkling my frit on it.
Should we do both our pieces?
the question was, should you do both of your pieces, both of the glass pieces?
Both of your cutouts. Both of the cutouts.
Just with the big glass, right?
You
Should I do
can,
them
but
both at the same
I'm
time?
also gonna give an option of your smaller one to use the frit and your little glass pieces without having to peel the back off, just straight on the base. So that's your choice. Okay, if anybody needs this glue, here it is. Thank you. And when everybody's ready, you keep doing what you're doing. I like to put on one coat, sprinkling it with the spoon. And then I'll spray it with hairspray. And then I pat it down because there's usually some high spots and low spots. So I'll take it and pat it down with the back of my spoon and then give it another shot of hairspray.
Looks like most people are ready to.
Ready to move on? Okay. Now,
Hairspray first.
I'm just gonna give it a shot of hairspray on that base piece. Did everybody see me do that? And this is just like glitter art. But I'm not gonna pick it up and shake it off on this one. I'm just gonna start sprinkling. I'm not dumping, I'm just sprinkling. And I see that Elmer's glue is picking that up on the edge, and that makes me very happy.
So just trace it. Right?
Trace it with the glue and then hairspray and then sprinkle.
And some of them, I put a piece of glass where you could do it anywhere. But that's also a good measurement if you have enough glass on it. Because you can do these super thin, like this flame of the candle, which is really too thin. Or you can make it thick. It's going to be more luminescent. The thinner you can get it and the light is on in the lantern, it's just going to bounce around in between all those tiny particles of glass.
You have a question, Judy?
Yes.
If they want to put little glass chunks in, is now the time?
Yeah, now is the time to do that. It's a great time because these are going to stick to the hairspray and be just fine.
Like outline. We have these, the outline. Could be.
All right, we just got a comment here about all the really thin lines. Now, it does take a while to outline. You saw how long it took me to do that. But the most important are these outer points. That's the most important part. So if you just want to do that, the rest of it is going to be fine. It's just if anything hits that, it's going to knock all the frit off of that fiberboard. Yeah, there's no limit on how many times to spray it. It's going to burn off in the kiln. And I just see places that are where I got too much. So
Yes. Oh, then you pat it down and then hairspray again. Do you do a second layer or first?
I am doing a second layer.
Can we cut some of the glass pieces out?
Yes.
Okay, that's, I like the height of the glass frit on mine.
So how do we do this?
And feel free to do one with just one layer. And see how thin you can go with your technique, and then do another one with a thicker layer with 2 layers of the glass frit.
No, I didn't get it. Yeah.
So what I'm gonna do when I feel like I have enough, and you can do when you feel like you have enough glass crystals on it, I'm gonna use my X-Acto just to push it around and get it out of the excess there on the parchment paper. And that's still, well, I see over on this edge, it still looks a little thin to me, so I'm just gonna give it another.
Spray it
You can
in
spray it again in between layers if you want.
Can do that.
So there's really no right or wrong. Everything I'm saying is to help you have a successful project. Because remember, this is a non-traditional new art. So we are wide open. If you want to try something different than what's coming out of my instruction, go for it. Okay, I'm going to give mine another shot of hairspray. And I disturbed a couple pieces, so I'm just going to pat it right back down. So I am happy with the way that looks. I'm just going to scoot it off of my parchment paper and right onto the tray. And all of this residue that's on the parchment paper, we can save it and reuse it.
Sure.
Might have to wait till the end of class when it dries out a little bit, but. We will reuse that. Okay, questions about this technique? Oh, so if you are putting glass chips in there, little pieces of embellishments, after you finish, when you get it just the way you want it to look, just scrape off the top and make sure those the pieces of frit are not on top, because it's opalescent, meaning it's not completely transparent. It may block your color a little bit if you leave it on there. So just talking. Y'all can keep working. But on the bugs, on the flying insects, sure. We're going to change the view here.
Recording in progress.
It's okay. If I could see.
Okay. Oh, we still have an echo.
Another brick, add it down, spread it, another layer of brick.
Okay, so here's where combining the modeling glass clay can come in. These little bugs, the body is the modeling glass clay and the wings are the glass paste, the sugar glass. And here's one right here. Can you see that? There we go.
I have
Okay,
a question, can they make something out of modeling clay today also, or is that a different firing process?
no, it's the same temperature. So if you would like to do that, feel free to make something out of the modeling clay.
So when we put the glass piece on, do we just stick it in or do we use the hair?
Just lay it on top.
Just lay it on top?
The hairspray, when you spray the hairspray, it'll glue down those pieces of clay. And I am finished cutting and sprinkling, so I took my mask back off. But if I do sprinkling and cutting again, I'm gonna put it back on. Okay, here's another situation where I'm gonna use the modeling glass clay to help with the detail. And Wendy, can you switch it back down to my? All right, so here, I know somebody's doing a hummingbird out there eventually on their lantern. But the beak, I did this out of the glass crystal. The beak was so delicate that it fell off. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a new beak.
Oh, gee, I have a question, quick
Yeah.
question. When do you use the hairspray and how much?
You can use as much hairspray as you want, 2 or 3 sprays. And one final, just make sure you do one final spray after you get it to where you want it.
Maybe you just get like the layers of it. Spray
Yeah,
it.
I sprayed the base after the Elmer's, then I sprinkled one layer, then I sprayed it, then I sprinkled another layer because my edges still looked a little thin. And then I sprayed it a final time. So I'm just gonna work on this start because you'll be able to see it better. So I am just gonna make this piece. I'm not gonna attach it right now, but I'm gonna make it and I'm gonna glue it together when I glue it back on my base or on my lantern. So with this, it's gonna shrink some, and the tinier you make that piece, the more it's gonna shrink. So I would, even though it looks good to me right there, I'm gonna stretch it out some more because I know it's gonna shrink and I don't want it to be smaller than what I intend. So that's a little long, but I think after we put it in the kiln, it's gonna be just fine. Okay, here's another thing I did. I laid the modeling paste down in the shape of a tree, pretend that triangle's a tree. And then I sprinkle my frit on that. So you can use the modeling clay as your base instead of the fiberboard.
So is that too thin? Or do you think it's okay?
I would put some more just on these outer
Okay.
edges. And then we'll see. Somebody asked me if I thought their layer of frit was too thin. And the edges look like they were gonna separate a little bit, because if glass wants to draw up when it's this thin instead of spreading out. So on this edge, that's where I knew I had a little gap there, but I was just gonna see what happened, and sure enough, it pulled away and my gap became larger after it went in the kiln. What other questions?
Will the pencil mark show after it's fired?
No, the pencil mark, we're gonna pull that away. The question was, will the pencil mark show? And no, we're gonna pull that paper completely away and just leave the glass. Does that make sense? The
Here.
the fiberboard is gonna separate from your glass after we fire it in the kiln. And we're gonna throw the fiberboard that came off the back away. So all pencil marks are gonna leave, and it's gonna give you a very lacy, like a fine lace look.
Okay, they want to know, how do we attach bug wings to the glass? I think they mean the base, but I'm not sure.
Okay, I like to keep the bug wings separate. The answer is, how do you attach it to the glass? So these were two different pieces. I did the body and I did the two wings. So 3 total pieces that went into the kiln. So I didn't put them together in this form until I glued them all together. Is that helpful? So you can make separate pieces. That's another way to get around really fine detail, is that you don't put it all together until you're gluing it to your final base. Then you can make smaller pieces, because it just handling this, it could break. And I wanted y'all just to take the small one and do like an instant ornament, and you won't have to do anything to it when you get it back next week. That's what I did on this one. And I was gonna make a star this time, but I just did the circle out of frit and laid my glass pieces and the hat, put it in the kiln, and it's good to go.
Right onto the base.
Right onto the base, because I can put these bases back into the kiln. Now, please don't mix the modeling clay and the glass paste on this, because it will cause, the modeling clay will shrink so much, it'll cause the base to break in the kiln. So this way just has to be your little bits and pieces of sheet glass, and I will demonstrate that right now. Here's this.
The hairspray manufacturer.
I'm just gonna use the Elmer's glue for this project, this next project. The hairspray is just for holding it onto your fiberboard. Thank you. And I already traced around my base. I got a stencil and I put the star there. And this time, this really is like glitter art. I'm just gonna outline with the Elmer's. Sorry, you're gonna go slower and do a better job than I am. Okay, so we're gonna have a funny star, wiggly star. And I'm gonna just sprinkle it on that Elmer's. Make sure it gets on everything. On all my lines. Just like we did when we were kids, I'm gonna, well, here, I'm gonna take this lid and I'm just gonna press it so that it goes into the glue better. You don't have this lid. You can use the back of the spoon, which I'm missing mine. Nope, here, sorry. Okay, let's see if this worked. And there we go. What I'm gonna do now is take my X-Acto knife and just clean it up. I'm gonna scoot those. Make my lines a little more definite. Okay, that's good enough. And then I cut a few pieces earlier and just put like one in the center. And I did the same process using with the snowman. So there you go. When you get them back next week, you'll be able to decorate your tree after Thanksgiving dinner.
I know, I wanna watch the weather.
Okay, so I've got this frit is dry because I didn't spray it with hairspray, so I'm just gonna put it right back into my container. And I'm gonna check on this hairspray frit. It's still, well, it's pretty dry. And I'm also gonna put it back in the container, but you could wait till the end of classes if yours is not dry yet.
So can we put the frit, you said not to really put it on the glass, the other glass, or could we do a little bit of it?
Not the modeling clay, but the
No,
frit,
Yeah. Can
yes.
we put it on the colored glass?
Yes, you can put the frit on the colored glass on your base. But just don't combine the modeling clay with this technique that I just showed you.
Did you spray that with hairspray?
No, this one doesn't need hairspray because it's got the Elmer's. Actually, it wouldn't help. Let's do that. Because now that you asked the question, I do see. So there we go. That should hold it.
Glue the colored piece.
Yeah, that's a good idea to glue the colored piece down. The hairspray will go under it and help it a little bit, but just put a spot of Elmer's glue underneath that piece and that'll be great.
But you shouldn't do the hairspray until after you dump the edges.
Yeah, you can see everything's all wet now. It looks totally different than it did when it was dry. So I'm gonna work on this candle a little bit.
Are you just doing that with a paintbrush or do you X-Acto knife?
I am getting this fired fiberboard off the back of my fired glass paste piece
But you're
with
using
a
paintbrush.
paintbrush.
Okay.
Now, when it's thicker, I will lift the edge up. So I could use both, but it only goes off the corner and then I'm back to the brush. And this is not something you're doing today. This is what you're gonna do next week. I'm just moving
Okay, I
ahead.
have a question.
Okay,
We
question,
Review that process again.
yes.
And they said blue and outline only, even for the snowman head? And can we put fiberboard on the small base to be fired together?
What was the last part?
Can they put fiberboard on the small base to be fired?
You don't, there was a lot of question in that question. You do not need to put fiberboard underneath the base because I have fiber paper at my house that I will put under it before I fire it. So that's not necessary. The other question is, did I just outline the snowman with the Elmer's glue or did I do solid? It's probably best to go ahead and do solid. That way it will hold these little bits and pieces as well. And to be honest, I didn't even use Elmer's at home because I didn't have to travel anywhere.
And then they also want to know, are these two separate things or are we combining them into one thing?
Are these two separate things? Or are we combining them into one thing for the final project of your lantern? That's the question. And the way you might think of something else, but the way I've thought that we can just use the Elmer's and little bits of glue is if somebody wants to do little tiny bits of snow falling like this. Because this was difficult to do all these little tiny pieces of clay. So I think if somebody wants to do something like this on their lantern, you can put little spots of the Elmer's and just sprinkle it straight on without going into the kiln.
All right, so a couple other questions. We have a hummingbird fiberboard we want to put on the small base. Wait for it to come back to attach it to the base? Is the question.
The question is, when do we attach the fiberboard? We take the fiberboard off of the glass next week. And then we will glue the glass without the fiberboard onto the base.
And then somebody in Labarge wants to know, can we add snow to our tree projects that were already fired and painted?
Absolutely. And I brought mine in to show you. I actually used some scrap. Oh, that's another thing. Don't ever throw anything away. Because these are scrap pieces that I used from projects from years ago to make the snow. But you can cut your fiberboard like I would do. Instead of doing pieces like I did here, I would just do one big piece across or one piece either side of your tree trunk. Mine didn't go all the way to the bottom. That's another reason why I broke it up. So yes, you may do that today if you want to add snow. And on your branches, just cut little tiny slivers of your fiberboard and do your best to get that glue to stay on it. Or you can do a larger piece and we can take our X-Acto knives and when you get it back next week, we can break off edges and make it smaller so that it looks more like natural. That is if you're having a hard time being so small with the fiberboard pieces. What other questions?
I love your snowman.
Oh.
It's very fun.
Thank
I do
you.
too.
Oh, here's one of my pieces of scrap. Actually, I'll show you how easy it is to break. When I was working on the demos for the tree trunks, I went totally with the clay because I just did not like the result I was getting. Maybe you can think of something to do differently, but I did not like the way the glass paste was taking my brush stroke. So I just abandoned it. But anyway, here you go. I'm just gonna break it in two. Just like that. Here. There it goes again. It really is like sugar. All right, I'm gonna tell you another thing. So if something does break, don't throw it away because look at the back of this. I did a repair job to its wings that broke off. So we can put things back together if they have a clean break for your final project. So don't despair at all if something breaks. Okay, what else? And I am gonna fire these at about the same temperature as I did the clay. Probably a little less, like at 1225 instead of 1275. Because this, I don't know if you can tell the difference.
These on the glass.
No,
Yeah, this glass
no,
stays.
not your fiberboard.
Yeah, so this is. this
If
glass
I
stays.
fire it at a higher temperature, it gets a lot glossier. But if I fire it at a lower temperature, it stays more sugary looking.
But these don't go on.
Correct.
Okay, what else did I forget to tell you or would you like to know?
So we can put
Okay.
whatever we have left back into.
Yes, whatever you have left on your parchment paper, put in your Dixie cup and back into the jar. Even if it's got spray on it. The idea, now if I were at a studio where other people came and this was a huge jar, I would not do this. But I want y'all to use all this up before the end of the 8 weeks. And it's just hairspray. We know it's not gonna cause any issues. And yeah, it's okay to put it right back into that jar. You're welcome. Okay, here's something I'm thinking about adding to my winter lantern. Is making a set of candles on one panel.
Oh, pretty.
And I think I'm gonna leave the candle part white and just paint the flame yellow.
Okay, I have another question.
Yes, another question.
Are you making a base for the fiberboard glass piece that we just made?
This is it.
That you
Yes,
have
the fiberboard glass piece you just made should fit on your larger base, the 3" by 4" base. And if it's hanging off like 1/8 of an inch, that's okay, but I don't want it hanging off like 1/2 an inch. But that'll be next week. We just use this for measuring today. But I wanted y'all to have some fun with these smaller pieces. Smaller bases, I mean. This tree could be done just straight on the small base as well. Or on fiber paper if you want to use it on your lantern or something. Yes,
Somebody else. If we want to put snow on here, it's saying that should go on the fiber. The fire separately and glue it.
yes, the question is about the snow on the base, and I will just go ahead and show you right now. I am just gonna find my pencil. And I'm gonna make it out of the fiberboard. And I'm just gonna do it like that. Cut it out of with my X-Acto. And do the same process of spraying hairspray, doing a sprinkle. If you want a second layer, spray hairspray and another sprinkle. And for this little branch, I'm thinking I would maybe try this size. Something a little bigger than what you're imagining, because you can always break off the edge when you get it back. So that should hold enough to look like a little pile of snow. So as you're completing these projects, please put it on your tray with your name on it. And you don't really need to send any parchment paper to me. Just the base of the small one that you made, and the fiberboard is good to lay on the tray.
We have a question. What size are the glass pieces on the lantern?
Oh, that is a good question. What size are the glass pieces on the lantern? And next week, you will be getting these templates that I made. I don't think it's here. I think we need to switch to the bigger one,
Oh,
Wendy.
yeah.
The top of the larger window is 3 3/4 inches across, and the door is a little smaller, 3 inches across. Do I need to push join auto? I
no.
don't want to, okay, okay. So this is what you're gonna get next week. There we go. And this is the side panel. You will get 3 side panels. They're all the same size. And then you will get a 4th or 3rd piece of paper that has the door panel, which is a little bit smaller. And this is 3 inches across the top of that glass and 2 1/4 inches across the bottom, and they're all 7 to 8 inches tall. So you'll get to start playing with your designs next week. Did I answer the question that was out there? Okay, here's a thought. Like Ann said, there are too many options here. If you want just to put a little tiny piece of snow right there, you can try just the Elmer's and the Frit right on there without going into the kiln. It's just it's gonna be a little sharp. So if you were, I don't think it would cut you. But I would be good for that. If you have just tiny little pieces that you just don't want to mess with putting in the kiln, I would try that. But this band down here, I would definitely put that in the kiln. See, we can make up rules as we go. one thing I found about doing the flowers is that if you stick with more like the flower powered design of flowers, it's just a lot easier. Instead of if you make real fine petals. And on these larger flowers, get that under there. I made the flower petals separate and the inside separate. So you can also do that. And this is a way of also getting it thinner. If you just want to try one layer, don't do like a snowflake with all those different arms. Do a simple petal and do them separately.
I wish I'd known that an hour ago.
Oh, you can do more.
My snowflake-
Somebody said they wish they knew that information.
I know, it's like, I don't know. I think it's just gonna stick
I
together.
think it's just gonna go.
Yeah,
We can add
Whatever.
more. Do you not have enough on there? Add more. now?
Remember, we're also experimenting, so please don't feel despair at all over any of this. We're gonna experiment. So what you're gonna learn from what you're doing right now, you apply it to your final project.
I just thought it was, oh, it's so delicate, it's gonna be so pretty, and
And
then
then
I
it's
started,
like-
I was like.
and it was hard to
know.
cut out too.
Yeah.
Then I thought, no, I don't have to make it that precise.
How's everybody doing? Did I give you too much information today?
Well, that was good. A lot to digest.
Okay, got a question from Labarge. The Fritz and glue put directly on the glass, do they get fired?
Yes. But not this one, not if you're adding glue, because I don't wanna take a chance on what we did with the modeling clay to shrink any further and break the glass. So this one, no, but these small ones or whatever you've done just by putting the frit directly on the base,
Those get sent to you.
those get sent to me and I will fire them.
So then when we color it, like if we do the candle and we put it on and then we color it with our temper paint and then.
Yes, you can color it with your paints next week. And I bet that these are gonna take on the paint as well. It's a matter of, do you want to paint from the back and have the sugar paste show up more, or do you care if it's not that sparkly sugar look and you can paint it from the front?
I like the back.
Right, if you stain it on the back, then you preserve that sugary paste look on the front. And acrylics, you know, they don't really have a natural shine to them. It's gonna dull that sugar, sparkly sugar look. But that's next week. Or you don't have to use paints on them at all if you like the white.
Looks like Labarge's got another question for me.
Okay.
Okay, can we add black glass beads as eyes on snowmen? Absolutely, they have glass beads there, I guess.
You know what, if you would like to add them next week after they're fired, please do it then, because I don't want it to cause it to crack. It could be it could be not compatible when it goes in the kiln, but it's perfectly good if you want to glue them on next week. So I was just gonna show you how translucent that is. So you can't see my phone down there, but you can certainly see the light shining through it.
Looks like camera and thing is pretty up. There's a bar just working. Cleaning up.
And where should we put these in the back?
Yes, when you've got your projects on the trays and you're ready to clean up, please put them in a safe place and we will alternate stacking them. Don't make them fit right in, just alternate. And tomorrow they can be turned and put on top of each other. And everybody should have gotten this thin foam when I sent back your projects. And that will go on top of these projects. Just like that, as a little cushion. There we go. And it's okay to lay it on top of it, even though it's not dry yet.
Fiberboard stencil good for anything?
Ooh, yeah. It's fiberboard? Yeah, save it.
So you might feel like you're getting, you're finishing up really early, but when we start doing all 4 panels, it's gonna be busier. And you can take your time and do an extra one if you want right now.
Perfect.
But if you're good to go, then,
I'm satisfied.
okay.
Everybody is. Do we want the fiberboard in our boxes or do you want
You,
the extra stuff?
Your extra fiberboard can go in your personal box.
Thank you. I should run, this is Lori, she didn't do this. It has a pin on it. And my hand. Oh, that would be. I mean, my house at 11:30, we're supposed to be there. 11:30.
I'll mute you for now.
So is the sun still here? No.
So is everybody okay out there? Do you have any more questions for me? I know this is a lot of information, a lot of different directions we could go with just such simple techniques. So if you have any questions or you want to try something different and throw it at me, you can ask me about it. And I will try to give my best answer. So next week, you will get your projects and patterns back, and you will peel off the back fiber paper and get that cleaned up really good, because as you saw me working with the little paintbrush, it takes a little while to get it all off. And then you will glue it to your base. And then I will present you with your templates to start working on your design for your lanterns. Everybody ready to clean up?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope everybody had fun. And I hope we're all exercising our brains with these new techniques.
I need to go back to 101, paint the glass.
I know.
I know, that's
Oh,
what
I know.
That's what I don't feel like.